Sit down, kid. Give us all a little afternoon comedy, will you?
Gregory Whitman leaned back in his designer tuxedo, one hand resting lazily on the edge of the marble chessboard at the center of his grand living room. His voice echoed smug and sharp, slicing through the low jazz humming from the ceiling speakers. Laughter erupted around the room. She probably thinks a rook is something you cook. Someone chuckled behind their glass of Pinot Noir. Does she even know the pieces move? Another guest added, her pearls clinking as she laughed. All eyes turned toward Maya, an 11-year-old black girl in a faded maid's uniform dress. She stood still, her frame slight but upright as the golden California sunset poured through the tall windows behind her, casting her shadow long across the polished floor. Behind the velvet curtain near the kitchen archway, Claria's mother watched, fingers clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. Clara had been in this house for 17 years. She'd polished these floors, served these drinks, and stood silent through far too many of Gregory's little games. But today it wasn't just her dignity on the line. She's only in elementary school, sir. Clara's voice broke through. Barely audible, Gregory waved his hand. Chess is about the mind, not the age, who knows. Maybe she has some hidden spark of genius waiting to surprise us. Maya stepped forward. She didn't flinch, didn't smile. Her small hand reached for the chair opposite Gregory, pulling it out with calm precision. I'll go first. Mr. Whitman. Her voice was soft but sure, a quiet strength that made even the drunkest guest pause. Gregory scoffed, pressed the chess clock, and leaned in, clearly amused. She's got guts, or someone whispered, or no clue what she's walking into. Maya lifted her hand, moved the white pawn forward to e4, a clean, confident opening. Silence. The laughter trickled down into murmurs. Gregory furrowed his brow slightly, brushing it off with a smirk. Clara didn't move from the curtain. Her heart was racing, but her mind was drifting back to nights when Mia would sit at the kitchen table with a flashlight, poring over torn chest books they'd borrowed from the community library. And in that moment, as silence fell and the pawn stood tall at the center of the board, something shifted, not just in the game, but in every heart watching. Maya didn't just move a piece. She moved a room, a mindset, a mountain built on doubt. If this story moved you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and how Maya's quiet strength spoke to you. And if you believe in the power of stories to challenge, to heal, and to inspire, give this video a like. And don't forget to subscribe. For more tales that remind us courage comes in all sizes. No one had taught her. No coach, no club, just books. And the memory of Mr. Walter, the old army vet who used to live across the alley and play chess with beer. Bottles and a cardboard board. She thinks 4 moves ahead. He had once said, that girl's going to grow up checkmating fools who underestimate her. Gregory looked down at the board. He'd played hundreds of games here, always against bankers, CEOs, men who shook his hand with a smile and feared him behind their teeth. But now across from him sat a girl, black, poor, quiet, who looked at him like she wasn't here to please. No one in the room, not even Gregory himself, realized this wasn't going to be a game. It was a beginning, the first crack in a wall built on arrogance and assumption. The clock ticked with soft, deliberate clicks, a sound too gentle for the tension pressing in on the room. Mia's hands rested in her lap, steady, unmoving, while Gregory tapped his fingers on the marble board, eyes narrowed at the pawn that had just invaded the center square. Clara remained half hidden behind the heavy curtain, her heart thudding in her chest like a drum. She wasn't sure if it was fear, pride, or a strange rising hope that knotted her stomach. Perhaps all three. One thing was certain. This wasn't a game to Maya, and Clara had seen that look before. It was the same look her daughter wore the night her only friend at school called her a charity case, and Maya came home silent, eyes burning like fire behind glass. Back at the board, Gregory moved his knight out confidently. A classic opening reply. Let's not drag this out, he muttered loud enough for the nearest guest to hear. More polite chuckles. But Maya didn't smile. She reached out, lifted her bishop, and slid it into position. Her moves weren't rushed, but neither were they tentative. She wasn't guessing. She was building. While the match continued in the center of the grand room, Clara's mind wandered to where it all began. She remembered the tiny rented apartment above the dry cleaners off Jefferson Boulevard, where Maya first picked up a plastic chess set from a thrift shop bin for 50 cents. She'd been 7, bored, curious. Clara hadn't known a rook from a pawn. But she remembered Mia's eyes lighting up like she'd discovered a secret language. Every night after finishing her shifts then as a waitress, Clara would come home to find Maya hunched over the checkered board, facing imaginary opponents, whispering move names under her breath like spells. "You need real people to play with," Clara had said once. "I have me," Maya replied. And the books, those books had come from the downtown public library, stacked beside her bed like sacred texts. Capablanca Fisher Pulargar. Maya read them like stories, each match unfolding like battlefields in her mind. Her notebooks were filled with chess notations, strange hieroglyphs of a private universe. Clara barely understood. Gregory leaned back now, lips tight. Maya had just pinned his knight with a bishop, forcing a retreat. The guests weren't laughing anymore. They were watching. Really watching. "She's actually playing," someone murmured. "Number she's studying," another replied. Maya didn't hear them. She saw only the board, the geometry, the unfolding terrain of pressure and counter-pressure. To her, every move was a question, every response a story. She had read these patterns not in books alone, but in people in the cafeteria lines, in the way teachers looked at her when she raised her hand too quickly, in how adults assumed silence meant ignorance. To Maya, chess was survival strategy proof. Back in the service quarters, her room was no more than a closet repurposed with a bunk, a shelf of torn books and a tiny plastic fan. Yet on those cramped walls, she had drawn diagrams of traps and forks, gambits and defenses. Even her birthday wish last year wasn't for toys, but for a chess clock she saw in a pawnshop window. Clara made it happen. Sold her wedding ring. Maya never found out. Gregory made another move, poor Rash. Mia's eyes flicked to the piece, then back to his face. She didn't smile, but inside something stirred. Across the room, a man in a navy suit whispered, "Where'd she learn this?" A woman with silver hair replied, "Not in any school around here." Another murmur, "What's her name?" Clara finally stepped out from the shadows. Her back straightened, her voice calm. "Her name is Maya," she said clearly. Gregory glanced up for a second. Just a second. And in that second he lost another piece. The air in the room had changed. Gone was the flippant mockery, the lightness of an upper-class afternoon amusement. In its place was tension, curiosity, discomfort. Maya made her next move, and Gregory was forced to castle a defensive maneuver. His smile had faded, his brow furrowed. He looked at Maya now, not as a joke, but as a challenger. She was without question playing better than he expected, perhaps better than he was prepared for, and still she hadn't said another word. Clara watched it all. She saw more than chess. She saw a girl demanding to be seen in a world designed to overlook her. She saw every line in Gregory's face deepen, every casual guest fidget with their drink, every whisper shift tone from ridicule to respect. She whispered to herself, "That's my girl." Gregory sighed and moved upon. A weak move, predictable. Maya captured it without pause, setting up a threat 3 moves ahead. Another guest, a man with gray eyebrows and a chess club pin on his blazer, leaned toward his companion. "She's not just good, she's precise, like she's been playing every day for years." "She has," Clara said softly. The man turned, startled that she had heard him. "She taught herself," Clara added. "No coach, no school, just books and will." The man blinked, then looked back at the board. "Well," he said, "then we're not watching a fluke. We're watching a prodigy." Outside, the sun had begun to slip behind the hills. The shadows stretched long across the floor as the board between Maya and Gregory grew heavier with tension. Each piece now felt monumental, each silence a weight, each glance a calculation, and Maya, just a child in stature, just a servant's daughter in their eyes, commanded the board. Like a queen who had already seen the endgame, she had walked into that room to play a game, but what she was really doing, whether they realized it yet or not, was rewriting the script they thought they were watching, piece by piece, word by word, move by move. And in doing so, she wasn't just playing. She was becoming. Clara stood by the edge of the room now, exposed. No longer shielded by velvet drapes or the quiet anonymity of the kitchen. Her apron was still dusted with flour from the lemon pound cake she'd been baking, but her posture was as upright as any of the high society ladies in silk gathered across the room. Still, her hands trembled. She rubbed her thumb against the inside of her wrist, a habit she'd picked up long ago to keep her nerves from showing. Maya was holding her own, piece after piece. Gregory's smile had vanished entirely. He leaned forward now, elbows on the table, both hands clasped under his chin. His guest swans laughing. Now nearly breathless had become spectators too, something no one expected. Clara's heart ached with pride and fear. She hadn't wanted Maya to play. Not here, not like this. Clara had worked for the Whitmans since she was 4. She had wiped the marble floors, arranged centerpieces, managed the pantry inventory, and kept her head down. She didn't complain when guests mistook her for help from the catering company. She didn't speak up when Mrs. Whitman said she's like family in that performative way. Wealthy. People say about those they underpay. She learned early what it took to survive in places like this. Invisibility. And now her daughter, her quiet, brilliant daughter, was anything but invisible. She shouldn't be here, Clara whispered to herself, though her eyes never left Maya. This isn't a place for us. But it was too late. She closed her eyes and saw another memory. Alabama 1994. Clara, 16, seated at the back of a classroom. Her hand shot up during history class. Ready to correct Mr. Jennings' mistake about the Civil Rights Act, but the teacher looked right past her, called on Brandon instead, who repeated exactly what she'd said under his breath seconds earlier. Brandon got a nod. Clara got silence. She had carried that silence for decades. And now here was Maya refusing to inherit it. Clara opened her eyes again. Her daughter had just sacrificed her knight apiece. Gregory quickly captured with smug satisfaction, only to realize seconds later that Maya had forked his queen and a bishop. A calculated trap. The guests let out a collective murmur. A woman in pearls even clapped once before catching herself. Maya's face didn't change. She was ice and fire wrapped in a child's frame. She's dangerous, someone whispered from the back. Gregory heard it. He didn't appreciate the tone. His jaw tightened. Lucky move. He muttered loud enough to be heard. Let's see how long the streak lasts. But Clara knew better. This wasn't luck. Maya never believed in luck. She believed in reading people, reading patterns. Even at 8, Maya could tell when someone's smile was fake, when a compliment hid an insult. She didn't cry when girls at school laughed at her hand-me-down. She just started sketching. New designs in her notebook saying, maybe I'll make better ones someday. Gregory made his move. Maya countered immediately. He leaned back, sighing. Clara caught a glance from an older man near the fireplace. Mr. Leonard, if she remembered correctly, a semi-retired attorney. He met her eyes briefly, and in them, Clara saw a flicker of recognition. Respect. It startled her. She looked away. She wasn't ready to be seen either. Clara, someone said suddenly beside her. It was Mrs. Patterson, the cook. She'd stepped away from the kitchen and was wiping her hands with a dish towel. Her southern accent was softer now, more sisterly. Your girl, she's doing something mighty rare, Clara hesitated. She's just a child. She's showing them they've been wrong, Mrs. Patterson replied. That takes more than talent. That takes bravery. Clara wanted to agree, but old Ghost pulled her back. I don't want them to crush her, she said, voice shaking. This world, it doesn't like being proven wrong. Maya tilted her head slightly. And sometimes confidence is earned. Clara, standing near the archway, held her breath. Her daughter's tone wasn't defiant. Tea was clear, composed, unapologetic, and that made it all the more powerful. Gregory moved again, this time more slowly. He was trying to predict her now rather than react. But that was the problem. He was already behind. Maya moved her knight and Gregory's bishop fell. Gasps echoed. One woman clapped involuntarily, then lowered her hands quickly, cheeks flushed. It was no longer possible to pretend this was a fluke. At the edge of the room, Mr. Leonard, the semi-retired attorney, with the keen eyes, leaned toward a guest. She's not just winning, she's teaching him. A ripple moved through the guests. Their expressions had shifted, no longer amused or dismissive. Now they were curious, invested, some even uncomfortable, watching a man of status slowly unravel against a girl he'd dismissed as entertainment. Gregory rubbed his temple. You do understand you're not supposed to embarrass your hosts, right? Maya said nothing. She simply reached for her queen and moved it with clinical precision, placing Gregory in check. Silence. Gregory stared at the board. He had options, few desperate ones. His fingers hovered over his rook but faltered. I underestimated you, he admitted quietly. Maya blinked once. Most people do. He let out a laugh, a short, breathless sound that didn't reach his eyes. You're enjoying this? She looked at him, expression steady. I'm playing the game. Nothing more. And it was true. There was no gloating in her voice, no spite, just purpose. Clara felt something uncoil in her chest. Her daughter's restraint or discipline was as powerful as any brilliant. Move on the board. Maya wasn't here to humiliate. She was here to be heard. Finally, in the only language this room seemed to respect. Excellence, Mrs. Patterson, still standing nearby, whispered, Lord have mercy. That child's not just special. She's dangerous to people who think they know everything. Gregory made a move on meant to stall. A queenside shuffle. Maya's response came like thunder on a clear day. Rook to E1, check again. It was surgical, inescapable. Guests began whispering. Some took out phones, not to record, just to hold, to feel less powerless in the face of something they didn't understand. Maya's hands folded again in her lap. Her breathing was slow, even across the board. Gregory's world, his curated image, his social armor, his silent confidence cracked, thin as porcelain. He hadn't just misjudged her skill. He had misjudged her presence. And in this room of marble and wine, between crystal glasses and oil paintings of horses no one rode, a child was making history. Not the kind with banners or applause, but the kind whispered about at dinner tables, the kind that makes men sit differently, in their chairs when someone says, You remember that girl? As the clock ticked onward. Maya watched the seconds pass, not as pressure, but as rhythm, each take a reminder that everything has a time, even reckoning, and today it had arrived. One move at a time. Maya's eyes scanned the board like a grafer, reading ancient maps, every route, every possibility already etched into the folds of her mind. Gregory, by contrast, now looked like a tourist lost in a city he once thought he built. He scratched the back of his neck, his expression fixed between forced amusement and mounting dread. The marble floor beneath Mia's chair gleamed under the light of the chandelier. But she sat still, feet barely touching the ground, shoulders straight. Her fingers tapped softly against her thigh, not from nerves, but rhythm. She counted moves ahead like a jazz musician improvising, each note exactly where it needed to be. Gregory made another defensive move, safe, cowardly. He slid his remaining rook into a corner and leaned back like he was daring her to come after him. Mia tilted her head. She didn't need dares. She needed truth. And on that board, truth had only one language, checkmate. Clara watched from the side, hand over her chest. The room felt heavier now, not tense but dense, like history itself had entered uninvited. The guests no longer whispered. They barely breathed. This wasn't spectacle anymore. It was revelation. Gregory tried a gambit. He sacrificed a pawn. It was textbook misdirection, a play meant to bait, to feign weakness, to regain initiative. Maya didn't fall for it. She didn't even blink. She moved her bishop with a grace that seemed almost dismissive, blocking the trap without acknowledging it. Across the room, someone exhaled with awe. She's playing like she's already won, murmured Mr. Leonard. No, said a younger guest beside him. She's playing like she doesn't need to win. Ugh, Maya leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the table for the first time. Gregory leaned in too, mimicking her instinctively. It was subtle, but Clara caught, and so did Mrs. Patterson, who chuckled softly under her breath. She's leading that man, she whispered to Clara like a dog on a leash. Clara didn't laugh. She couldn't, not yet. Not until it was over. Gregory moved again, this time with force. His knight lunged across the board, taking Maya's remaining pawn. He cracked his knuckles like a man reclaiming his territory. Thought you might have missed that? Maya didn't respond. She reached forward, pushed her own knight forward 3 spaces, and whispered softly, almost to herself, Pawn to E4. It was the first phrase she'd spoken on the board since. Your turn, but it landed like thunder. Gregory looked down, realized the trap a second too late. A hush swept over the room. That wasn't defense, someone murmured. That was bait. Gregory's lips pressed together into a pale line. He didn't speak, he stared. He ran through the possibilities, calculated the losses. But the problem was there were no good losses left. Every move now would cost him something. Maya had cornered him. Not with brute force, not with showmanship, but with logic, with patience, with vision. Clara remembered something. Maya once said just after losing a match against an online player with better software. It's not about attacking, she said. It's about making them believe there's nowhere safe, That's what she was doing now. Gregory adjusted his collar. Sweat dotted his hairline. One guest coughed, trying to break the tension. It didn't work. The board had become a storm cloud and Maya controlled the weather. He reached for his queen, moved it awkwardly out of danger, but in doing so he exposed his king's last protection. Maya looked at the exposed line, then at Gregory. Her next move was so clean, so subtle. It looked casual until you realized what it meant. Rook to d8 check, no one spoke. Gregory sat back, his breath shallow. His fingers curled into fists against his thighs. "This is a joke," he muttered. "A party trick." But even he didn't believe it. Maya sat silently. He made one final move, a desperate shuffle of his king across the board, away from the attack. And then Mia said the words that ended it. "Ketuf sedden, checkmate." A single gasp, then applause, polite, stunned, and real. Gregory didn't look up. He stared at the board as if it had betrayed him. Maya stood quietly and pushed her chair in. Her eyes moved across the faces in the room, some proud, some shocked, many trying to make sense of what they had just seen. She didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just said, "Thank you for the game," and walked back toward Clara. The guests parted like water. When Maya reached her mother, Clara's hands were trembling again, but this time it was from holding back tears. "You did it," Clara whispered. Mia didn't answer. She simply leaned her head against her mother's side. Gregory stood slowly. He didn't speak. He looked around at the guests as if searching for someone who might confirm this wasn't real, that this didn't happen. But it did. And as Maya left the room, her small figure framed by the grandeur of the house she cleaned, no one doubted anymore who the sharpest mind in the room truly was. That night the house returned to its usual quiet. The chandelier still glowed faintly in the parlor, but the energy had changed. Guests had dispersed, their laughter subdued, their stories altered. The silence left behind was not emptiness. It was acknowledgement, reverence, a kind of uneasy respect they didn't quite know how to express. Upstairs, Clara tucked Maya into bed in the small service quarters just above the laundry room. The space barely fit a twin bed, a shelf of books, and a plastic chair. But Maya had always made it hers. The walls were papered with hand-drawn diagrams of opening moves. Queen's gambits, annotated endgames. A small corkboard bore faded photographs. Maya and Clara at a public park. A snapshot of a library card. A worn photo of an elderly black man with a bushy, white beard and warm eyes. Walter. Maya's voice broke the silence. "Do you think Mr. Whitman will be mad tomorrow?" Clara smiled gently, sitting on the edge of the bed. "He might not talk much. That's how men like him deal with being proven wrong." Maya turned on her side, her eyes on the ceiling. "I didn't want to embarrass him. I just wanted to play." Clara brushed a hand over her daughter's hair. "You didn't embarrass him. He embarrassed himself." Maya nodded, but her mind wasn't on Whitman anymore. It had drifted past the mansion, past the fancy people and the marble floor to another living room, much smaller, much older, with peeling paint on the walls and a dusty old chest set that smelled like mothballs and pipe smoke. Walter's voice echoed in her memory. "You don't win by being the smartest, Maya. You win by being the most patient. Let them think you're quiet. Let them think you're weak, then make your move." He had been more than a neighbor, more than a mentor. Walter was her first believer, a retired Vietnam veteran with shaky hands and sharp eyes. He lived in the ground floor unit of their old apartment complex back in South L.A. Every Saturday, Clara would leave Maya with him when her second shift began. And every Saturday, Walter would pour 2 cups of tea for himself. One for Maya, though hers always had more sugar than tea, and set up the chessboard. The first time she beat him, he stared at the board for nearly a full minute before chuckling. "Well, damn," he said. "Didn't see that coming." "I read your defense," Maya replied proudly. He grinned. "And I underestimated you just like the rest of the world's gonna do." From then on, he stopped holding back. The games got harder, the praise more rare, but Maya didn't mind. She didn't want kindness. She wanted the truth. The night before he passed, Walter had handed her a thin, creased notebook filled with notations and sketches. "Every trap I've ever learned," he said. "Every mistake I've ever made, so you don't have to make them too." Mia still kept the notebook under her mattress. In the present, Clara stood and adjusted the thin blanket over Mia's shoulders. "You did something brave today," she said softly. Maya looked at her, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Is it brave if it's just chess? Clara shook her head. It's never just chess when the world expects you to lose. They shared a quiet moment. Mother and daughter, the kind of silence forged by deep understanding. As Clara turned off the light and stepped out into the narrow hallway, she nearly bumped into someone. It was Mr. Leonard holding his coat already halfway to the door. I'm sorry, ma'am, he said, voice growly but warm. I couldn't leave without saying something. Clara straightened. Of course, that girl of yours, Maya. She's something special. Clara nodded, hesitant. She always has been. I've been a member of the State Chess Association for 30 years. Oh, digis. Flame out and self-taught kids rise up. But I've never seen a child read the board like she does with heart and heat. Clara exhaled. She's never had a coach. Maybe she didn't need one, Leonard said. But she deserves one now. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. There's a scholarship program, summer academy in San Francisco, national level prep. I sit on the board. If she's willing, I'll sponsor her. Clara took the card slowly, eyes widening. That's generous. It's fair, he said, and long overdue. He tipped his hat and walked out, leaving Clara standing there with a piece of paper that might change everything. Back in bed, Maya turned to face the window, watching the glow of the garden lights through the dusty glass. Her mind, always ticking, was still playing, still building new patterns, still chasing Walter's voice like a guiding star. But for now, just for tonight, she allowed herself to feel what she rarely let in, pride, because she hadn't just won a game, she had opened a door. By morning, the story had started to ripple beyond the walls of the Whitman estate. Word traveled fast in the neighborhood of Brentwood, where gossip moved faster than news and reputations could shift. On a single headline, although no camera had recorded the match, dozens of guests had left with the memory of Maya's victory etched deep into their pride or bruised egos. Some told it with amazement, some with discomfort, and a few with carefully concealed irritation. Gregory Whitman, for his part, had said nothing. He came down to breakfast late, ignoring his staff, waving off his usual green smoothie. He sat in his private sunroom overlooking the rose garden, flipping through the morning paper without reading a single word. A half-eaten piece of toast sat cold on his plate. He wasn't used to losing, especially not in front of an audience, and especially not to a child, and certainly not to the daughter of a maid. Mrs. Whitman finally broke the silence. It's all anyone was talking about this morning at the club. Your little chess match made quite an impression. Gregory grunted. I heard she wiped the board with you, she added, her tone a blend of curiosity and critique. It was an exhibition, he muttered. A novelty, that's all. Mrs. Whitman folded her hands across her silk robe. Some novelties reveal more than they intend. He didn't respond, but her words echoed. Downstairs, Clara had already started her morning routine. She was chopping vegetables in the kitchen when Mrs. Patterson handed her a folded note. It was handwritten in sharp slanted cursive. Clara unfolded it slowly. The Air Miss. I've spoken to the director of the San Francisco Chess Academy. They're eager to evaluate Maya formally. We'll arrange transportation, lodging, and all tuition discreetly if needed. She deserves to be seen. Leonard W. Hargrave. Clara's throat tightened. She folded the note and tucked it into her apron pocket, heart pounding. It wasn't just about chess. It was about what came next for both of them. Upstairs, Maya sat at the tiny desk in her quarters staring at Walter's notebook. She had flipped it to the last page where Walter had once scribbled a quote from James Baldwin. The place in which I'll fit will not exist until I make it. She traced the words with her finger. There was a knock. Clara entered, holding a cup of hot tea. Maya looked up and smiled faintly. Clara sat down beside her. Mr. Hargrave wants to sponsor you. Mia blinked. For the academy? Clara nodded. It would mean leaving for a while. New people, new city. Mia looked back at the notebook, then out the small window. The idea scared her, not because she doubted herself, but because she knew what it meant. A step into a world where she couldn't afford to fail. Do you think I'm ready? She asked. Clara placed a hand on her shoulder. You've been ready for a long time. The world's just catching up. Mia took a deep breath. I want to go. I want to play for real. And with that, the decision was made. Later that afternoon, word of Maya's talent began spreading into places Maya had never imagined. A guest from the party, a tech executive named Aaron Reeves, wrote a LinkedIn post titled, the smartest player, in the room wasn't on the guest list. It described Maya's poise, the elegance of her strategy, and the quiet fury with which she dismantled privilege. The post went viral. Messages flooded his inbox, requests for interviews, interest from educators, even a few skeptical critics accusing him of embellishment, but others began to ask, "Who is this girl? Where did she come from?" An assistant from a local morning show reached out. "We'd love to meet her," she said, not to parade her but to hear her voice. When Clara received the message, she hesitated. Her instinct said to protect Maya, shield her from the noise. But the fire in Maya's eyes when she spoke about the academy reminded Clara that this wasn't just about safety, it was about purpose. They agreed to one interview, no cameras, just audio. That evening in a quiet radio studio downtown, Maya sat across from the host, headphones oversized on her small head, microphone inches from her lips. "Tell us about the game," the host said gently. Mia shrugged. "I just played. That's what I do." "Were you nervous?" "Yes, but I wasn't afraid." "What do you want people to remember about it?" Maya paused, then said that it wasn't a fluke. That sometimes the person no one's watching is the one paying the most attention. The interview lasted 10 minutes, but its echo lingered far longer. That night, Clara and Maya walked home together, hand in hand under the dusky sky. The city lights flickered in the distance, and Mia looked up at her mother. "Do you think Mr. Whitman will talk to me again?" Clara smiled softly. "I think he'll think about you more than he talks. And sometimes that's better." Maya nodded. She didn't need his words. She had her own, and soon the world would hear them, one move at a time. 3 days after the radio interview aired, Clara's phone buzzed nonstop. She wasn't used to this kind of attention, not from the outside world. Most days she moved through life like background music, constant, essential yet unnoticed. But now strangers were calling, emailing, asking to speak with her daughter, with Maya. Some wanted to help. Some just wanted to be near the flame of her rising star. At first, Clara filtered everything. She turned down a television appearance, declined offers from journalists. She wasn't sure whom to trust, and she knew fame could be a cruel master. But one message stopped her in her tracks. It came from a woman named Eloise Ramirez, founder of an organization called Queen's Gambit, or Zynga nonprofit, dedicated to finding and supporting underrepresented talent in competitive chess. The email wasn't flashy. It was personal, respectful. I heard Maya speak on the radio. Her clarity of thought, her humility. It reminded me of why I started this organization in the first place. We don't want to exploit her story. We want to protect it, nurture it. When you're ready, let's talk. Oh, Clara showed Mia the message that evening. Maya read it slowly, her thumb resting on her cheek, her eyes thoughtful. "Do you think they mean it?" Clara looked at her daughter. "I think we'll ask the right questions and find out." 2 days later, they met Eloise in person at a quiet cafe in East Hollywood. Eloise, a woman in her late 40s with graying braids and eyes that missed nothing, sat across from them with a calm presence. "I don't want Maya to be anyone's mascot," Eloise said plainly. "I want her to be a player on her own terms." Mia leaned forward. "I just want to play, but I don't want to play in places that don't want me." Eloise smiled gently. "Oh, they'll want you. Maybe not for the right reasons yet, but they will. The trick is making sure you still want you when they do." That stuck with Clara. It was the first time someone acknowledged the weight Maya would carry, not just as a talent but as a symbol. And that symbol, she knew, could either be a crown or a chain. By the end of the meeting, they had agreed. Maya would begin private coaching with a grandmaster, affiliated with Queen's Gambit Rising. She would train for regional qualifiers, and she would do it with her full name on the Restmore, initials to hide her identity, Maya Whitmore. The next week, training began. Her coach Pavarin was a gruff former Eastern European champion who now lived in Glendale. He was known for 2 things: hating small talk and producing disciplined players. But from the first session, he saw something different in Maya. "She doesn't play by textbook," Pavli said, frowning at a Madame board. "She plays by instinct, dangerous but if refined, unstoppable." He pushed her hard, taught her new strategies, new variations she had never seen in books, endgame drills, time pressure simulations. He challenged her to lose and learn from it. Maya didn't complain. She took every correction like it was fuel. Every loss was an opening, not a failure. Every mistake a stone in the foundation she was quietly building. Meanwhile, the world continued to shift around her. Gregory Whitman, whose public silence had drawn suspicion from his business partners and neighbors, finally made a brief appearance at a local fundraising gala. When asked casually by a fellow board member about the chess girl, Gregory chuckled and said she had a good day. Let's see how she handles pressure. It was a backhanded dismissal, but it found its way online. Within hours, Maya's supporters clapped back. One tweet shared over 30,000 times read, "Imagine losing to an 11-year-old and pretending it didn't matter. The only pressure she's under is cleaning up after men who can't admit they lost." Maya didn't read the tweets. Clara made sure of it, but she felt the mood shifting. Her name was now a vessel carrying more than her game. She was becoming a symbol of disruption, of quiet defiance, of brilliance in places people didn't expect it. One evening, after a particularly brutal 5-hour session with Coach Pavel, Mia slumped onto the living room floor with a sigh. Clara handed her a cold drink. "Tired?" "Yeah," Maya said, sipping. "But it's a good kind. Like I'm turning into someone stronger." Clara sat beside her. "You've always been strong." Maya leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "You think I'll make it to nationals?" Clara kissed her temple. "I think you already made it. The rest is just catching up." The room fell quiet, lit by a soft lamp and the warmth of their togetherness. Outside, the world continued its chatter, its speculation, its headlines and noise. But inside that small apartment, Maya was still just a girl with calloused fingers and a hunger to think 10 steps ahead. The board was still open. The pieces were still moving, and Maya had only just begun her game. The hall was quiet, except for the muffled clicking of chess clocks and the occasional whisper between judges. Maya sat at table 14, her eyes level with the board, her body still. Her palms rested lightly on her knees, her breath slow. Around her, the regional youth tournament buzzed with the energy of dozens of competitors, parents pacing, coaches muttering, players gripping their pencils like weapons. But Maya had learned how to make her world small. She saw only the board, her opponent, and the opening they'd chosen. The boy across from her, taller, slightly older, with slicked back hair and a badge from a private academy, played a Sicilian defense, aggressive from the start. He smirked when he saw her response. "You sure you know what you're doing?" he said, voice low. Maya didn't answer. Her fingers slid a pawn forward, steady and silent. The boy's smirk wavered after 6 moves. By move 12, it was gone. By move 23, he knocked over his king. "Whatever," he mumbled, shoving his chair back. Maya remained seated as the judge recorded the win. 1 down, 4 to go. Clara watched from the parent section, heart thudding with every round. The competition hall inside the convention center was freezing, but she didn't dare move to get a jacket. She watched Maya between games like a hawk, backed by a professional coach, and already courted by national recruiters. He had a trophy at home. He had articles. He had confidence. He didn't have Maya. They shook hands before the match. "You're the one from the radio," he said, trying to sound casual. "Let's see what all the fuss is about." Maya just nodded. "Good luck." The match began. And for the first time in her competitive life, Maya felt the weight of expectations settle on her like fog. She made her opening 2 fast pawn to d4 her favorite, but slightly off-tempo. Calvin capitalized. He pressured early. She made a mistake on move 9. Pavle, watching from a distance, clenched his jaw. Clara noticed Mia's foot tapping, but then something shifted. Maya inhaled. She stopped chasing the game. She began to build her own. By move 21, she sacrificed her rook to create space. By move 33, Calvin's king was boxed in. By move 37, he was down to 20 seconds. Clara held her breath. And then it happened. Maya moved her queen into position, calm as still water. "Checkmate," she said softly. The room broke into a wave of applause. She didn't smile. "Not yet." She stood, bowed slightly, and shook Calvin's hand. "Well played," he said. "No smugness this time." "You too," she replied. Pavle walked over and gently squeezed her shoulder. "That," he said, "was class." And as Clara wrapped her daughter in her arms outside the hall, the sunlight finally broke through the clouds above. Mia had earned more than a trophy that day. She had earned her place. 3 days after Mia's victory at regionals, the letter arrived. It wasn't just any letter. It came in a thick cream, colored envelope with the emblem of the National Chess Federation embossed in gold at the top left corner. Clara found it tucked into their apartment mailbox. wedged between a grocery store coupon booklet and a city utility notice. She stared at it for a moment before slipping it into her coat pocket and heading back upstairs. Heart pounding, Maya was sitting on the floor of their tiny living room, assembling a three-dimensional chess puzzle Coach Pavle had given her. Pieces floated mid-air on plastic risers. The board split into layers. She was so focused, her brow furrowed, that she didn't notice Clara come in. Clara cleared her throat gently. Mail came. Maya looked up. Bills. Shook her head and handed her the envelope. This one's for you. Maya's eyes widened. She wiped her hands on her jeans and held the envelope, like it might shatter if she moved too fast. She turned it over slowly, then slipped a finger under the flap and pulled out a crisp sheet of stationery. She read in silence. Then read it again. Clara sat down beside her, unable to wait any longer. Well, they invited me, Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. To the Nationals in Chicago, all expenses covered. Clara exhaled slowly. They saw you, huh? Maya didn't say anything at first. She looked down at the letter, the words shimmering in her hands like something magical. But then she looked up, her face unreadable. What if I'm not ready? She asked. Clara tilted her head. What makes you say that? I won regionals, but nationals, that's different. Those kids are trained, coached since they were 5. They probably have sponsors, grandmasters. Clara smiled. And you have something they don't. What? Maya let the words sink in. She folded the letter and placed it on the coffee table. I want to go, I know. The next few days moved fast. Eloise arranged logistics with the Federation. Coach Pavle doubled Maya's training hours, and Clara took on extra shifts to make sure she had enough saved for anything the tournament didn't cover. Meals, transit, maybe a nice coat for Maya if Chicago's winter came early. Maya didn't complain about the pace. She trained harder than ever, reviewing famous games, studying her own match videos, drilling end games until her fingers ached. She barely touched her sketch pad. Even Walter's notebook sat untouched for days. But one night, just past midnight, Clara found her at the kitchen table. The notebook open, a pencil in her hand. You're still up? Maya nodded. I was thinking about what happens after Chicago. Clara poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. Let's win Chicago first. What if I don't? Maya asked. What if this was it? Clara walked over, pulled out the chair beside her, and sat down. Maya, she said softly, do you know what I see when I look at you? Maya shrugged. Someone who plays chess. I see someone who fights with grace. Who listens more than she speaks. Who doesn't back down when she knows she's right. Mia looked away. But is that enough? It's more than enough. Clara said it's rare, and that's why people are drawn to you. Not just because you win, but because of how you win. Maya didn't reply, but her hand closed the notebook gently, as if sealing that truth inside. A few days later, they boarded a plane to Chicago. It was Maya's first time flying. She stared out the window, watching the city shrink beneath them. Clara held her hand during takeoff, and Maya didn't let go even after they leveled out. They landed in snowfall. The hotel was downtown, paid for by the Federation. A marble lobby, elevator music, a bellhop who raised an eyebrow when he saw who the reservation was for. But Maya held her head high. She had earned her space here. The first day of nationals was a whirlwind registration. Photos pairings. Maya's name on the tournament board read, Maya, Los Angeles. It made something flutter in her chest. Coach Pavle met them in the practice room. He looked out of place in the polished hotel, still wearing his worn jacket and scarf. I spoke with 3 other coaches, he said. They're already watching her. Mia glanced up. Why? Because you don't just beat people. Ma, you change the room. Pavle tapped his notebook. First round is tomorrow. Get sleep. Don't chase brilliance, chase clarity. Maya nodded. She didn't need to be flashy. She just needed to see the board. That night, Clara and Mia sat by the hotel window, watching snow fall over the city. The lights of Chicago flickered below like constellations. Are you scared? Clara asked. Mia hesitated. Yes, but it's the good kind. Clara pulled her close. Then you're ready. In the quiet that followed, Maya whispered, Mom, do you think Walter would be proud? Clara didn't answer immediately. She looked out into the dark, saw a reflection of Mia's face in the glass, calm, strong, growing. He'd be proud, she said, but not surprised, because even Walter had known. One day the world would see what he had always seen. A girl who didn't just play the game. She changed it. The tournament hall at the Chicago National Chess Center was a cathedral of silence. Hundreds of boards stretched across polished wood floors, each with its own overhead light, each hosting a battle no less serious than war. Maya sat at table 17, her ID badge snug against her chest, heart steady. The murmur of shuffling pieces and timed clocks filled the room like soft rain. Her first opponent was a boy named Theo from New Jersey. Fast hands, confident eyes, and a reputation for crushing early openings with sheer aggression. He played the King's Gambit, a bold, flashy move meant to provoke. Maya didn't blink. She declined the gambit, transitioned into a Quran defense, quiet, frustrating. She absorbed his fire and waited. By move 26, Theo was leaning on one elbow, chewing his lip, clearly unsettled. He wasn't used to patience. He was used to applause. Maya offered none. When his bishop fell to her pawn trap, a gasp escaped from another table. Maya didn't lift her head. By move 38, checkmate came with the quiet precision of a scalpel. Theo muttered, "Good game," and walked away quickly. The next 2 rounds were tougher. Her second opponent, an Indian-American girl named Priya, forced her into an unorthodox opening. They played for nearly 2 hours, sweat forming on Mia's brow as the clock dwindled, but Mia clawed her way back, sacrificing material to gain time and eventually forcing a draw in a near-lost position. By the third match, whispers were already circulating the hall. "She's the girl from the radio, right? No formal academy, just a local coach. She beat Hargra's protege in regionals. It's not a fluke." Maya heard none of it. Clara had taught her to keep her circle-tight eyes on the board, ears only for her own rhythm. In the players' lounge, Maya sat on a bench, unwrapping a sandwich Clara had packed from the hotel breakfast bar, a banana, half a muffin, and a folded napkin with a note scribbled in ink. "You don't have to be the best to belong. You already belong, Mom." Maya smiled and tucked the note into her coat pocket. Coach Pavle walked over, arms crossed, eyes stern. "You are holding too long in the middle game," he said. "You hesitate when you don't trust the board." "I didn't want to overextend," Maya replied. "Risk is not the enemy. Indecision is." She nodded. She knew he was right. He handed her a folded sheet of paper. "Study this tonight. It's the game that cost me my championship. Learn from it." Maya accepted it with both hands. Clara met her after the 4th round, her eyes scanning her daughter's face for cracks. Mia leaned into the hug longer than usual. "How's your head?" Clara asked, loud. Maya replied, "That's okay. You just need to find the quiet inside it." That evening, snow dusted the windows of their hotel room. Clara made tea in the little electric kettle while Mia cross-referenced Pavli's annotated notes with Walter's worn-out notebook. The lines met and crossed in her mind, strategy and instinct forming something new. As they settled into bed, Clara looked over. "You're doing it," she said. "Not someday. Not almost." Now Maya turned toward her. "I want to win, but not just the trophy. What else? I want them to remember how I played." The next day, the final round began. Her opponent was a boy named Elliot Tran, the reigning junior national champion, calm, sharp, ruthless. His coach stood nearby, arms folded, nodding once as Elliot sat down. The board between them was already famous. A judge adjusted the clock, nodded at both. White to play. Maya opened with pawn to d4. Elliot responded with a quiet, respectful nod, and the Nimzo Indian defense, a flexible opening, meant for control. They danced. It wasn't a war. It was a conversation. Elliot asked with every move, "Are you ready?" And Maya answered, "I've been ready." By the midpoint, their game had drawn the attention of half the tournament hall. The other matches faded to background noise. Clara clutched her coat at the back of the room, whispering prayers she didn't even realize she remembered. Move by move, my pressed, she sacrificed her bishop for position. She trusted her knight to control the center. She allowed her king to be chased into the open, and in doing so revealed a trap she had laid 15 moves earlier. Elliot's eyes narrowed. He missed the final threat. Maya moved her rook. The silence was absolute. "Checkmate," she whispered. Elliot leaned back, blinking. Then without hesitation he stood and extended his hand. "Beautiful game," he said. Maya shook his hand. "Yours too," the judges conferred. The final scores were tallied. A few minutes later, her name appeared on the board. "First place, Whitmore, Maya, Los Angeles." Clara ran to her, tears in her eyes. Pavel allowed himself a rare smile. Eloise took a photo not to post but to keep. Maya simply stood holding her breath. She had done it. Not for applause, not for fame, but because she had finally proved first to herself, then to the world that brilliance knows no uniform, no zip code, no bloodline, only heart. And Maya's heart beat like a queen, rising from the back of the board, unstoppable. The victory ceremony had ended hours ago. The grand hall of the Chicago National Chess Center was emptying. The overhead lights dimmed, and only a few staff remained, gathering chess plates and folding chairs. Maya stood in the center, trophy in hand, its weight warm and unfamiliar in her grasp. Around her, the gratitude of supporters was a gentle hum, but her gaze was distant, focused inward. This is more than games. She paused, her eyes distant. Mom, do you ever think about Clara who raised me? About what she gave up so I could stand here? Clara blinked. Every day, Maya reached over and took her mother's hand. I promise every move I make, I'll make in honor of you and Walter. They sat together, hands entwined, 2 generations quietly mapping the next chapter. The next morning, they headed toward the convention center once more. Not for match play, but for the closing Kenoshan invitation. Only panel of champions and education advocates. Maya had been asked to speak. Clara stood at the back of the room, watching as her daughter stepped to the podium. Maya's small frame looked potent against the heavy curtain backdrop. She inhaled, studied herself, and began. What I learned in chess is the world doesn't just test your skillet. It watches your courage when everything seems set against you. I found a place by believing it exists. Her voice was clear. She told them about Walter's lessons, about nights in the apartment, about being underestimated, about that day in Beverly Hills when she sat at a board meant for jokes Sand made at her stage. She spoke of the scholarship to San Francisco, of nationals, but most of all she spoke of every child who sat alone with a chess set, wondering if they belonged. I belong, she said, and I believe you can too. The applause was soft, then steady, then full. A crescendo that wasn't for the trophy she'd won, but for the courage she'd shown. Clara wept quietly, moved by every word around her. Faces shimmered with tears, one thoughtful move at a time. First day back in Los Angeles felt strange. The sun was bold, the air thick with promise. But for Maya and Clara, the world had shifted. Their apartment felt smaller, their routines heavier, full of possibilities they hadn't yet named. They unpacked slowly, as if deciding which parts of their triumph to bring home and which to leave behind. Maya returned to Coach Pavle's studio that afternoon. The walls, lined with framed games of past champions, suddenly looked like markers on her path. She entered and greeted him with respect. He nodded, then led her to the board. Today, he said quietly, you'll teach me? A slight grin flickered on Maya's lips. She moved her knight into position. They began. While Maya taught, Clara received an unexpected call. It was Gregory Whitman. Her heart froze. She hadn't heard his name in weeks. She braced herself. Miss Whitmore, he began, voice strained. I want to congratulate Maya in public, officially. Clara closed her eyes. A somber victory dance. Thank you, she said gently. I'll let her know. Gregory paused. I'd like to offer a foundation. Granto support Maya's club to level the field. Clara's chest grew tight. A tremor in her voice. Why now? Gregory cleared his throat. I underestimated her. And I underestimated what she could inspire. I want to fix that. Clara didn't respond immediately. She watched Maya's hand sliding a pawn across the board, teaching with focus and kindness. Finally, she answered, I'll speak with Maya. Well, consider it, one thoughtful move at a time. First day back in Los Angeles felt strange. The sun was bold, the air thick with promise. But for Maya and Clara, the world had shifted. Their apartment felt smaller, their routines heavier, full of possibilities they hadn't yet named. They unpacked slowly, as if deciding which parts of their triumph to bring home and which to leave behind. Maya returned to Coach Pavle's studio that afternoon. The walls, lined with framed games of past champions, suddenly looked like markers on her path. She entered and greeted him with respect. He nodded, then led her to the board. Today, he said quietly, you'll teach me? A slight grin flickered on Maya's lips. She moved her knight into position. They began. While Maya taught, Clara received an unexpected call. It was Gregory Whitman. Her heart froze. She hadn't heard his name in weeks. She braced herself. Miss Whitmore, he began, voice strained. I want to congratulate Maya in public, officially. Clara closed her eyes. A somber victory dance. Thank you, she said gently. I'll let her know. Gregory paused. I'd like to offer a foundation. Granto support Maya's club to level the field. Clara's chest grew tight, a tremor in her voice. Why now? Gregory cleared his throat. I underestimated her, and I underestimated what she could inspire. I want to fix that. Clara didn't respond immediately. She watched Maya's hand sliding a pawn across the board, teaching with focus and kindness. Finally, she answered, I'll speak with Maya. Well, consider it. She hung up with trembling hands. That evening, Clara and Maya sat across a small wooden table in their kitchen. Unusual calm. Clara placed her phone down. He called, she said softly. He wants to help. Maya frowned thoughtfully. Why? Clara met her gaze. He says he wants to fix what he broke. Mia touched her rook tattoo, a gift from Clara after nationals. I think he's afraid. Clara nodded. Scared of what you represent? Maya exhaled slowly. He's king on that board. He has power. He doesn't like losing it. Clara leaned forward. The offer? Mia sat back and folded her hands. We could say yes. Use it to launch the chess club, but it means taking from the same table we sat to break. Clara reached across. Maybe that's exactly where we must plant ourselves. Maya's eyes searched her mother's. If we build with his grant, do we owe him anything? Clara shook her head. We set the terms. We hold the vision. Mia nodded. Then let's do it. Next morning, they met Gregory and his assistant at the estate small conference room. A polished oak table, warm tea, hushed demonstration. Gregory shook Clara's hand and looked at Maya with quiet sincerity. I apologize for how I framed it. You deserved respect, not spectacle. I hope this grant helps make that change. Maya's voice was steady. Respect doesn't come from money. It comes from trust. I won't take a dime if it means trading my voice. Gregory's lips tightened. After a moment, he nodded. You'll have my trust. They signed paperwork. Foundation grant established. The Maya Whitmore Chess Initiative. Scholarships, community workshops, coach stipends, seed money provided. Expectations silent. 2 weeks later, the first club meeting was held at the local community center. Dozens of students, Black, Latinx, low-income, fanned across tables. Board set for beginners. Eloise and Coach Pavle led instruction. Maya demonstrated opening moves. Clara served lemonade and muffins. Maya noticed Gregory watching from the back. Quiet, observational, a strange present, part observer, part sponsor. One student asked timidly, why chess? Maya smiled. Because sometimes the people who don't notice the board are the ones who need it most. It helps you see the next step. A murmur of understanding. She continued, we're not just learning chess. We're learning how to think, how to stand, how to change the rules. Clara watched her daughter teach and knew they'd done the right thing. That night, Mia lay in bed, listening to the city breathing outside. Clara sat beside her. Did you see him? Maya asked softly. I did, Mia exhaled. I wonder if he believes yet. Clara held her hand. He sees now. That's more than many ever learn. Maya closed her eyes. Then the game's not over. Clara kissed her forehead. It never is. The community center hummed with quiet excitement. Long folding tables had been arranged in rows, each one neatly outfitted with chessboards and plastic timers, their numbers prominently taped to the sides. Children from all backgrounds gathered, some curious, some nervous, others already boasting memories of past victories. The Maya Whitmore Chess Initiative's first official gathering held more energy than any board game had a right to. Gregory Whitman watched from a folding chair near the wall, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. He wore no tuxedo here, only a simple blazer and slacks, seemingly wanting to blend in. But blending in wasn't easy when half the crowd saw his face pinned to the announcement he'd funded. Clara stood at the front greeting families as they arrived. She wore a modest dress, her hair neatly pulled back, and something in her posture had changed. She no longer hovered behind her daughter. Tonight, Clara held her own presence. It wasn't a place she thought she'd ever belong. But here she stood, equally important. Maya took a deep breath and tapped a small bell. She decorated herself earlier. Welcome to our first meeting, she called, voice calm but carrying. The room quieted. Thank you for coming. This is not just a chess club. This is a place you can belong, a place to discover what you're capable of. Applause filled the room. Children beamed. Parents' faces glowed. One little boy raised his hand immediately. What if I don't know how to play? Maya knelt to his level and smiled.
Then we'll teach you. That's what we're here for. Clara watched her daughter. Her soft voice, her confidence, the way she looked each child in the eye. She felt her chest tighten with pride and something else, a fierce urge to step up. Later, a hesitant pause formed near the center of the room. A middle-aged woman named Mrs. Jenkins approached Clara. She had come with her granddaughter, whom Maya had already paired with an experienced volunteer. I just wanted to say thank you, she said to Clara. My granddaughter has trouble focusing in school. I saw her today. She was laser-focused. Clara nodded, swallowing emotion. Thank you for coming. She glanced at Gregory across the room and realized something. Tonight wasn't about him. It was about them. Community, possibility, hope. She stepped forward and tapped a pencil against the wooden podium they'd set up beside the coat rack. Excuse me, she said, voice gentle but strong. I don't often speak in front of people, but I want to say this. Maya didn't just spark a board today. She lit something in all of us. And I'm here tonight because I believe in possibility. Because every move she makes with heart. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Gregory watched, expression unreadable but tears glistened in Clara's eyes. Maya joined her mother, and together they offered a simple invitation to sign up for weekend workshops to join a mentorship program to tell everyone they knew that this was a place of welcome and challenge. As the meeting ended, the cacophony of excitement swelled. Parents gathered around Maya. Volunteers lined up to help organize schedules. Clara was approached again and again, not as a maid's daughter or a servant, but as a partner in something new, something rising. Gregory walked over. Finally, he carried an envelope. Clara braced. I wanted to add more, he said quietly. Money, resources, whatever is needed. Clara looked at him, paused, then smiled. Thank you. We appreciate it. We'll use it carefully. He nodded, eyes down. Thank you for letting me. Later, after everyone had left, Clara and Maya cleaned up side by side. A stack of unclaimed chessboards leaned against the wall. Timers ticked quietly. A single poster read, Next meeting, Saturday D's AM, bring your passion. Maya wiped a board with a cloth. Mom! Clara turned to her. Did you ever think we'd be here together? Clara paused. Emotion warming her voice. Number, but I believed you could bring others here. I just never thought. I'd be standing with you. Maya glanced over and smiled softly.
You've been standing beside me from the start. Clara felt something shift, a realization that her own worth wasn't tied to her job or her past. Her dignity stood tall tonight, reflected in children's eager faces and parents' hopes. They locked eyes and held that moment. Maya tapped her pawn gently onto the board, one move at a time. Clara nodded. Exactly. They switched off the lights and stepped out into the warm evening air, the center behind them buzzing with invitations, laughter, possibility. They walked home hand in hand, two champions on different boards ready for the next game. The morning sun poured through the windows of the community center, illuminating the faces of children and volunteers gathered for a special event. Today wasn't a regular club meeting. It was the first official tournament hosted by the Maya Whitmore Chess Initiative. Banners hung on the walls reading, Every move matters, and think, learn, grow. Trophies were neatly arranged on a table near the front, waiting for hands eager to take them. Maya stood at one end of the room, organizing boards and welcoming newcomers. Clara floated between tables, serving water and encouragement. Volunteers set up timers and score sheets. You could feel it in the air. Community, purpose, quiet, excitement. At 3 hours, Eloise tapped her spoon against a coffee cup. Let's begin, she said. The chatter lowered to focused intent. Boards were reset, chairs straightened. First-round matchups were announced. Maya's eyes traveled across the room, landing on Gregory Whitman standing near the back, arms crossed. He didn't interrupt anything, just watched. His expression was inscrutable. He'd become a fixture in these meetings, son. Observer, a silent sponsor. But today something felt different. Maya felt it humming in his Gazia respect, perhaps even pride. Her first opponent was Lucas, a boy no older than 9, with bright eyes and shaking hands. His first move came quick, a beautiful pawn to e4. Maya responded gently, setting a welcoming tone. The match began. Lucas played with honesty and urgency. He didn't hold back. He attacked early, trading pawns, pressing Maya into defensive positions. But Maya treated it like a teaching moment. She offered suggestions under her breath, helping him see opportunities. When he hesitated, she encouraged him. When he missed a move, she didn't judge. I paused the game to show him what he could have done differently. Luke's eyes brightened at each insight. His final miss on move 23 allowed Mia to place him in check. She paused and leaned forward. "Want to try that again?" she whispered. Lucas nodded eagerly. Maya reset the board 5 moves back. They played again. Lucas made the move properly this time, and Maya, true to tradition, delayed taking his piece. Instead, she took his hand and said, "That's the moment I saw you grow." The room erupted in soft applause as Lucas moved his king into checkmate. He jumped from his chair, eyes wide with delight. Volunteers congratulated him. Parents wiped away tears. Mia hugged him, whispering, "Great game." Clara watched, tears of pride lingering. She caught Gregory's eye. He nodded just once. Maya stayed busy 3 more rounds that afternoon. Each match was different. One boy, 15, tried to intimidate her, but ended confused as she smiled and helped him navigate his own mistake. One girl, shy and full of potential, couldn't speak until Maya handed her a glass of water and suddenly spoke enough to say thank you. By the final round, Maya had 3 wins and 1 draw. Her opponent, a teenage girl named Serena, who had been winning most matches quietly but effectively, Maya approached the board and greeted her with a respectful nod. Their game was skillful but friendly. Neither made brutal moves. Rather, they traded insights under their breath, forming a quiet bond mid-aim. On move 38, Maya offered a draw. Serena paused, then smiled and shook. The room buzzed with applause, and not for winners, but for sportsmanship. Eloise stepped forward and announced, "Our winner by tie-break is Maya Whitmore." Another round of applause. Bigger this time, but still respectful, still kind. Mia stepped up and picked her trophy. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Children glowing with pride. Volunteers hugging parents. Clara wiping tears. Gregory standing with tears in his eyes, too. Maya walked to the podium and tapped the small bell she carried. The room hushed again. Today wasn't about winning. She began, voice steady. Sure. It was about showing that any one of you can sit down and play. That chess is a tool alone that teaches patience, courage, self-belief. We're not just here to checkmate pieces. We're here to checkmate doubt. She looked at each face before her. I know what it's like to feel invisible. I know what it's like to be underestimated. Today, you all stepped up and reminded each other. We are seen. We are worthy. Silence, then cheers. Volunteers joined her on the stage, handing out trophies and ribbons to top 5 players, but also certificates to everyone who competed. Maya and Clara stepped down together. Volunteers and families crowded around them. Photos were taken. Tears and laughter merged in celebration. As the day wound down, Gregory approached. He knelt to Ma's level. He handed her a small box, a simple gift. Inside was a lapel pin shaped like a queen chess piece. He said, "For the queen of this board, you've shown me what real leadership looks like." Maya accepted quietly, eyes bright. "Thank you." Clara burst forward and hugged them both. "You've both changed more than this room," she said. "You've changed us." Outside, the sun began to set, painting the sky with fiery colors. Inside, the community center glowed with warmth, a testament to hope, to courage, to 2 women who believed in the power of a single move. Together, they'd created something that would last, not because of trophies or headlines, but because of lives changed, hearts opened, and futures rewritten, 1 move at a time. The morning after the tournament, celebration brought a hush over the Whitmore household. The walls seemed larger, the rooms quieter, as though still processing how brightly their world had shone. Clara brewed coffee in the kitchen while Mia pored over lesson plans for the upcoming weekend workshops. The trophies stood still steady, silent reminders of dreams realized and work yet to be done. Clara handed Mia a mug. "Big day today," she said. Mia took a sip, thoughtful. "It's not about yesterday anymore. We start building now." Clara nodded. They walked out into a crisp autumn morning, leaves turning gold in Auburn on their quiet street in South LA. The air smelled of change. At the local school auditorium, volunteers and parents gathered to help prepare the first community showcase event meant to share chess, confidence, and inspiration with the wider neighborhood. Tables were set up with boards, posters, snacks, and sign-up sheets. Clara directed volunteers with newfound authority, handing out tasks and solving last-minute logistics like she'd been doing it for years. Maya and Coach Pavle arrived with Eloise. They joined Clara at the welcome table, and soon the gym began to fill with curiosity. Kids in backpacks, grandparents leaning on canes, neighbors stopping to see what all the excitement was about. Maya felt the familiar warmth of purpose spread through her chest. This was why she'd challenged Gregory, why she'd earned a nationals win it for personal glory, but to open a door for others. A tall banner read, "Open Horizons Chess Fair. Everyone belongs." Beneath, it sat a stack of freshly printed pamphlets, in English and Spanish, outlining club goals, workshop dates, and scholarship info. As volunteers helped kids learn their first moves, Clara stepped onto a small riser beside the banner. She cleared her throat and smiled at the crowd. "I began tonight just as Maya's mom," she said, voice steady and warm. "But I stand here, now as part of something larger because of a little girl who understands that every move matters. We built a community, not a competition, and this fair is our invitation to everyone. Come play with us. Come belong." The crowd applauded. Mia joined her mother on stage, fingertips brushing. During the fair, Mia led many sessions at Table 5. A line of kids, some shy, some bold, waited to learn the Queen's Gambit. Among them were siblings she recognized from her neighborhood, a boy who'd watched her tournament win online, and a girl named Sophia, whose older brother had died last winter. Sophia's first move was hesitant, but Mia gently steadied her hand and said, "Chess is about patience and belief." By noon, kids clustered around chessboards, while parents talked to Eloise and Clara about after-school scholarships, family game nights, and mentorship. A local pastor approached Clara. "Thank you," he said. "You've given us a vision and a tool not just for thinking strategically, but for healing." Clara's eyes welled. "We're just getting started." Afternoon stretched into early. Evening and volunteers began packing up boards while kids and parents lingered over juice and cookies. Gregory Vittman appeared again, walking slowly through the room. He observed confidently but silently, shifted man, perhaps changed. Clara spotted him and walked over. He nodded, voice low. "I didn't expect this, but I'm glad you did." Clara gestured to the crowd. "It's growing fast." Gregory took in the scene. Children cheering over small victories. Parents clasping hands, faces alive with possibility. He looked at Clara. "I want to expand this sports center libraries. Let me help." Clara looked at Maya, who nodded slightly. She turned back. "Well, say yes again. But only if you understand, this isn't yours to tame. It belongs to them." Gregory closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "I understand." Once the building was quiet, Clara, Maya, Eloise, and Gregory met in a small back office packed with leftover chess, boards, and volunteer forms. Eloise began. "We need resources for travel, for materials, for sustained coaching." She looked at Gregory. "If you're offering support, we'll build a real program." Gregory nodded. "Matching grants, facilities, access, whatever it takes." Maya raised her hand. "We need mentorship too. I don't want just money. I want people who've been where we are, who can guide others through the challenges we faced." Silence fell for a moment. Then Gregory nodded again. "I can use my connections. Nonprofits, schools, community foundations. Let's create a full pipeline." Clara closed her eyes in relief. "Thank you," Maya grinned. "Then let's begin." That night, Maya and Clara returned home under a violet sky. They walked slowly, the weight of hope in the air. Clara slipped her arm around Mia's shoulder. "You did this." Mia shook her head. "We did this." They unlocked the door, stepped inside, and paused at the trophies on the shelf. Clara touched one gently. "You started a revolution with a pawn." Maya smiled, her eyes shining with heart. In that moment, the next move was clear. Not on any board, but in life community meetings, school visits, mentorship programs. They were ready, one move at a time. The first test of the initiative's reach arrived in a letter hand-delivered by a school administrator to Clara's door. It was heavy, official, a Department of Education envelope stamped with the district seal. Clara recognized the penmanship instilled. Maya hovered behind her. "From who?" she asked. Clara untucked the envelope gently. "It's from Jefferson High. They want us to bring chess into their after-school program." Maya's face lit up, parts concern and excitement. "That's huge." Clara nodded. "It is." 2 weeks later, the Whitmore team arrived at Jefferson High's multi-purpose room. It was worn but welcoming. Folding tables, mismatched chairs, posters reminding students, "Be your own champion." A dozen teenagers milled around, some holding phones, others peering through wide eyes as Maya, Clara, Eloise, and Gregory set up boards and timers. Maya stepped forward, voice steady. "Good afternoon. I'm Maya Whitmore, founder of this chess initiative. We're here to teach you more than checkmate. We're here to teach confidence, clarity, strategy for school life, everything in between." A hush dropped over the room. Teenagers unsure but curious. Clara moved among them, setting up boards, offering water, answering questions. "Yes, you can learn. No, this isn't a waste of time." Volunteer coaches from the community wore name tags. Coach Ava, Coach Marcus, Coach Diego, locals who'd come to believe in Maya's vision. At one board, a tall freshman named Jasmine adjusted her headset nervously. Maya walked over. "Hey, Jasmine, let's start with pawn moves." Jasmine shrugged. "Never played." Maya smiled. "Then you're perfect," she explained gently. 5 minutes later, Jasmine moved a pawn to e4 and looked up at Maya and at herself in surprise. Meanwhile, Clara spoke privately with the school coordinator. "We'd like to run a 6-week pilot chess 2 days a week, plus 1 workshop on critical thinking." The coordinator nodded. "We've got funding." "And the principal is excited. He saw what you did in that auditorium." Clara Ara Igaled. "We'll do it." In the corner, Gregory observed quietly. He watched as teens listened to Eloise's story. How chess had changed her life, how it could open unseen doors. He studied the focused faces, the shy smiles, the sudden quiet of minds turning in thought. Buffeted by something unexpected, he approached Clara. "You did this." Clara smiled. "We all did." He hesitated. "I want to do more. I can open donor connections, tech companies, local councils, but I need to know the heart behind this must stay real." Clara nodded. "It will, I promise." The afternoon progressed with small victories. A checkmate here. A hesitant, "I got it there." A girl named Sophia whispered, "Thanks." A boy named Malik laughed at a clever tactic. Volunteers high-fived. Maya gathered the group for a brief debrief. "Ask yourselves this. What did you learn about the way you think?" Hands rose, patience. One student said another, confidence. A third, "I felt like I mattered." Maya's voice caught. "That's exactly why we're here." As the session ended, a mother approached Clara. "My son, Kevin. He's been struggling. But today he told me, 'Mom, I think I can do this.' Thank you." Tears shimmered in Clara's eyes. "Thank you for trusting us." The mother hugged her. "Thank you for caring." Later that night, back at home, Clara and Maya reviewed the day in the kitchen, sharing cold lemonade. "I saw something in the room," Claire said softly. "That shift, wanting more, owning more. That was your gift." Mia traced the rim of her glass. "It feels right," Clara sighed happily. "I know it does." Mia stood stretched. "Tomorrow we plan Phase 2 district-wide expansion." Clara nodded, one move at a time, and in their quiet living room they mapped it all out. Outreach, volunteer trainings, resource partnerships, evaluations. A board covered walls with colored posts. It notes life had become a chessboard of growth with bold vision and grounding roots. At the kitchen window, moonlight shimmered on their determined faces. Clara reached out and squeezed Mia's hand. "You've turned one victory into a movement." Maya's eyes glowed. "We did." They sat together, envisioning chess tournaments in high schools, mentorship circles and after-school spaces, futures beyond tests and stereotypes, futures anchored in thought, dignity, limitless possibility. They'd made an offer to the world, and the world was already saying, "Yes, own thoughtful move at a time." Winter thawed into spring, and with it came new horizons. The Maya Whitmore Chess Initiative had grown from weekend workshop to district-wide program. Now lessons echoed through gyms and cafeterias, carrying strategy, patience, and confidence into every corner of the community. And tonight the culmination stood before them. The school auditorium was packed. Students, parents, volunteers, district officials, even news crews lined the room, filling chairs arranged in neat rows. A large banner proclaimed, "Championship Night. Every move matters." On the stage lay a single chessboard flanked by 2 chairs and a podium. Clara stood backstage beside Eloise, her heart thundering. This night was never about spectacle, but it was about celebration. She glanced at Maya, who took a final breath, closed her eyes and smiled. "Ready?" Clara whispered. Maya nodded. Gregory stood at the side, hands folded. Clara noticed the gold plinth queen chess piece glimmering on his lapel. Neither trophy nor fame could match what that pin symbolized. Acknowledgement, respect, transformation. The announcer took the stage. "Welcome everyone to championship night," he called. Applause filled the room. "Tonight, two of our initiative's brightest young players will compete in an exhibition match. Jasmine Wright and Lucas Chen, both champions of our after-school brackets." Jasmine and Lucas stepped onto the stage, each about 10 years old, confident but nervous. They waved to the cheering crowd and sat. Maya and Eloise joined the announcer at the podium. "Before we begin," Eloise said, voice warm, "we'd like to recognize someone who started this all." Maya stepped forward. The audience drew silent. 2 years ago, I sat at a board meant for mockery. I was underestimated, ignored. But I saw an opportunity to play, to be seen. Tonight, this stage belongs to children who deserve more than that. Tonight, they belong to themselves. Clara blinked back tears. Among the audience, parents wiped theirs too. Joshua, the district superintendent, rose and nodded. "Thank you," he said softly. Eloise gestured to the board. "Let the exhibition begin." Jasmine moved quickly, confident. Lucas responded with strategy. The crowd leaned in, counting each move. Professors, parents, even district officials murmured as pieces advanced. Meanwhile, Maya watched from stage left, whispering coaching insights to Eloise. Clara stood stage right, hands trembling with pride. On move 10, Lucas faltered. Jasmine had set a trap. He paused, corrected his mistake, and finished with elegance. In a soft flourish, Jasmine said, "Checkmate." The audience erupted. Mia stepped up and pulled Jasmine into a hug. Lucas shook hands with both girls. "Remarkable," Maya announced. They played like themselves, with heart and clarity. That's how every game should feel. The applause surged. Clara felt hands on her shoulder. Gregor's. His eyes were bright. After the match, the awards table brimmed with medals. Each child received one, even those who lost. It wasn't a ceremony about champions. It was about confidence, possibility, growth. When the night closed, families lined up to talk with Maya, Clara, Eloise, and volunteers. A mother said, "My daughter's teachers report she's speaking up in class." A father thanked them. "Chess showed my son he's not stuck. He can move forward." Clara watched it all. She thought about their journey. Curtains, conference rooms, national tournaments, boardrooms, and community centers. It had been a remarkable path full of doubts, breakthroughs and small victories leading to this. She found Maya in the back hallway. She stood quietly holding a medal and a certificate that read, "Leadership through chess," and her chest still held the steady calm of a champion. Clara wrapped her arms around her daughter. Mia hugged her back firmly, voice soft. "We did it," she whispered. Clara nodded. "Yes, you did." Mia pulled back, looked into her mother's eyes. "We have more to do," Clara smiled. "One move at a time." Ahead of them lay summer camps, grant applications, district expansions, mentorship programs, even plans to visit rural schools across California. It was a board full of new moves, each requiring strategy, courage, heart. Gregory appeared and handed Maya a folder. Inside was a plan for outreach, sponsorship for travel teams, access to public libraries, discussions with city council for chess zones and parks. Mia looked at the plan, then at her mother. "It's growing." "It is," Clara said, "because people believed it could." Mia smiled. She closed the folder and handed it back to Gregory. "Let's keep our promise." Gregory nodded, tears glistening. Back in the empty auditorium, they stood together under the banner. Clara draped an arm around Mia's shoulders. Mia glanced at the staged board, remembered how lonely it used to feel before when the glass ceiling seemed impenetrable. Not anymore.
She had changed the story.
A girl from the margins now shaped a movement. She whispered to Clara, "Let's make sure no one else has to sit alone at the board." Clara squeezed her. And yes, they walked from the stage, ready for what came next, knowing the journey wasn't over, merely a new opening.